There's things that you do to discourage the behavior. You give them things to occupy themselves. I say all that to say you have to train the dog. And the biggest part of dog training is training the owner. So I do think that, some of the commentary that we said about Chris, yeah, he likely suffers from separation anxiety also. And I think he has an anxious attachment style, if I had to kind of, look at it from what I see. And he does, bond with his dogs in a way that he probably needs to look at more healthier alternatives, because you can get very attached to them. They do become like family members, but you also have to learn how to exist outside of the world of your dogs, and not be so depending on them that you break down. And in that moment it was really, really bad, because you would think the dogs had passed away by his reaction. So you have to, how is he going to solve a real world problem in his family, in his marriage, when a crisis comes and he was literally hysterical, and I'm like, this is just a common maths sight that we see. We see the man that is emotionally unstable and can't, hold himself together. And, it's unfortunate, but I think Nicole's going to eventually grow tired of being the protector and provider, because she has to swoop in and save the day. Now, I will say that it was not his recommendation for his dogs to stay and her dogs to go. That was Nicole's bright idea. However, he didn't, offer a compromise, which is what he should have done. He should have said, no, we can figure out some kind of way. But that just shows me, again, another level of his lack of, being able to be logical in tough times, is because he couldn't even stop the hysterics. He was so hysterical because he couldn't figure out an option. So he broke down and lost it, right? And eventually that's going to wear thin on anybody, when your go-to is to just get hysterical and lose it over a situation like this. And this wasn't even indefinite, right? This was for a short period of time. This is what happened. And we can figure out some type of solution. And I'll land my plane here. I think, like, I blame Mavs too, because at the end of the day, you knew he had two dogs. He came into it in the process, and the restrictions on the housing space that they put all the people in. So this woman has a dog, unless she lied on her questionnaire, which I doubt was the case, and you paired him with two dogs. There's only 5 couples. It's not like they got 20 couples and they got lost track. You know what I mean? Don't put him together with somebody that has a dog, because dog people are going to want to bring their dogs along, or get an exception, or figure out something for him ahead of time. But I think some of this is just created to see how people react in stressful situations. And then you just see he fell apart. So that's my thought.
Good points there, bro. Definitely hear what you guys are saying. You lot coming with some really good points today, and breaking down some real stuff here about Chris and Nicole. I do think, as well, that I mean, we can talk about it as well, that the crying led to no solution. Just wanted to just point that out. The crying led to not one solution. And when one was provided, he sobered up like a kid that, like a kid. No, it was like a kid. Like, he literally sobered up like a kid. It's like, you know what? You can get the toy now. And he's like, okay, thank God. I'm not saying it's manipulative per se. I'm just saying it's juvenile. And maybe that's probably a bad word to kind of say to describe the behavior. It's just really young, emotionally immature behavior. And again, I'm not trying to bash him. I'm really just kind of putting into perspective that during the crisis moment, he actually ducked away from the crisis. By crying and spending that time crying, he ducked away from the crisis. I'm just going to say this for the men personally. Me personally, this is my personal thought, right? Like, crying isn't an issue per se, right? So I think what he could have done was find his little corner, you cry your cry, and you come out and you say, you know what? I need to figure this shit out. Yeah, that's what I needed to see happen. Yeah, the crying that needed to happen was in your corner, in your little bedroom. You cry a little cry, or you go for a little walk and you cry a little cry. You suck it up. You come back in the house. And you're like, listen, we've got a problem. We need to figure it out. They say we can only have 2 dogs. It's a rich big town, but the house is not big enough for 3. So we need to find a way to sort this out. Right? Then we can have a discussion. If you haven't got a solution, that's fine. Have a discussion. Maybe she comes up with a good idea about going to her dad's or whatever. It might not go to the dad or whatever, and y'all start brainstorming. But to see him break down like that and offer no solution, bruh, I was not impressed. And I'm not impressed because it gives me an indication that potentially, is this how you're going to handle difficult situations that you can't handle in future? Because 3 dogs is hardly the hardest situation. There are going to be other situations coming up. But again, if he finds the right partner, she may be able to handle this. But I'm going to say this, I think we've all said it correctly. It's going to be a lot of a load if that's always a response that he comes with. And I think somebody said it quite correctly. Nicole didn't even get a chance to cry until later on. And you not know how I feel about the fact that when your masculinity is issued, is that we have to build the fence and the wall so that the feminine can thrive. At this point, the wall was broken and breached, and Nicole had to become the warrior. And then she had to wait till she got on the phone with her dad, another man, and then you can start to see her kind of breaking down. Do you get what I'm saying? So what I'm saying in this situation is not that men shouldn't cry. You can find your corner, you cry in it, and you come back out. There are some things when you cry over it, it don't look good. I'm just going to be honest with you. It don't look good. It doesn't send good signals. You know what I mean? Your mum passes, or your dad passes, or your family member passes. We all thought the dog had passed or something, or family member. While he was crying, I thought the family member had passed, and I thought to myself, that's fair. We understand. Okay, it's deep, it's emotional, it's real. But your dogs haven't even passed. They're not going to get put down. They're not getting shipped anywhere. Literally, you have to figure out how these dogs are going to survive for the next 8 weeks. That's all you have to figure out. That's all. And because of the tears and he was crying, he couldn't really focus on the solution. So man to man, and me talking to men, I'm saying it again. It's not that you can't cry. I'm saying to you, there's certain things that when you cry and you don't think of a solution, it looks very suspect and it damages the relationship. This is the kind of crying that women are talking about that is annoying. And this is the kind of crying that us as men as well looking at like, bro, what? Fix up. Just, yes, Sean, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because even on the after show, right, with Keisha, she was clowning him. She was like, I would have thought somebody died, or geez Louise. And here Nicole again has to come put her on her cape and stand up for her man, right? But it just lets you know the reality of how that comes off. And I think there's time and season, right? Like, because most of us and everybody in the comments, even said the same thing. Like, initially when he was breaking down like that, we thought a family member had passed away, because we get it. You lose a loved one, somebody you care about, you're gonna cry, right? But crying over and being hysterical even over the fact of 8 weeks without your dogs, I think there was a bit of projection over there, because I don't think he was emotionally ready to be in this situation, and he's leaning on these dogs for a crutch. Sometimes you need that time away to get to know this person. You're marrying a stranger, and dogs take up a lot of energy. And this is coming from somebody who is a dog owner, is a dog lover, right? But they take up a lot of energy. So you need a little bit of time to bond with this person who you're just getting to know before you throw a dog in. And we'll talk about the other couples later. But I just felt like even other couples like Gina and Clint, like, it's like, whoa. Don't push your dog. That's like pushing your child on somebody else. Like, let's get to know each other. Let's see if we can work it out before we start to throw our dogs in there. Just like people say, before you get married, or before you start dating seriously, rather, and if one of the partners has a kid, you take your time before you introduce that child. And dogs are very much like children. And you want to take your time before you introduce the dog to the person. And then if the other person has dogs, we see how that didn't go well with Justin and Alexis, right? Because you introduce the dogs too soon. You're not careful enough. The dogs can fight or not get along, right? Depending on those personalities. So all these things need to be parsed out. So he should not have just thought like, oh, as soon as we move in the house, my dogs are going to be with us for the whole 8 weeks. No, you probably should wait till week 7 or 8 before you start introducing those dogs, because that gives you and her a time to connect. You okay, bro? We don't want to lose you.
Sorry, bro. I choked on a drink. Sorry, bro.
We don't want to lose you online. I'll be hysterical. I'll be up here hysterically crying. I can't get to the UK.
Also crying.
There's nothing I can't do anything. I can't get to the UK. I'm in the US.
I'm about to pass out, bro.
Oh my
Start banging my head against the screen.
Do something.
JR, get to him, please, quickly.
Executive decisions need to be made.
But that's it. I digress.
I was just going to add a quick point. Like, considering, he got cheated on in his last relationship, apparently, right? And what are meant to be the most loyal pets to have? Dogs. So I think, like I said, he may have gone through his own way of getting over his breakup by getting closer to those dogs. And the fact that they provide the loyalty, the companionship, they're playful or whatever he does with them. Like, I'm not justifying him crying. I think that was very wet, right? I think that I'm not going to shame him, but because I don't know what it's like to have a bond like that with an animal. So, and I know that there are people all over this country and in my neighborhood that have dogs. So I'm sure the separation anxiety, the bonding, bringing them into new environments, making them meet your partner, all of those things are very important steps, not just to the owner, but to the pet too. Because if the pet doesn't like the person that you're bringing them around, then that's going to cause some friction too. Right. So, I think that the loyalty of the dogs and the way he's bonded with them is probably a huge reason why he broke down about not being with them. And let's be real, he's been on his honeymoon, right? He hasn't had the dogs with him on his honeymoon either. He hasn't been upset. So I failed to see what the traumatic, what trauma that it was going to cost just to be without them for a little while longer, because they can't be at home by themselves while he's in Jamaica. That would be cruelty. So, I like I said, I tried to see the positives. I think Nicole was rightly there for him. I know people are saying she didn't compromise, or he's going to resent her she's going to resent him for not compromising. But at this particular time, he was the one in need. I'm sure there will be other aspects that come up where he will be required to be the shoulder for her to cry on. And we've already seen it when she talked about her previous relationship, getting burned with a cigarette and all of that stuff. We saw how he held it strong for her. He didn't break down and cry then. He was her rock at that time. So now, and with this outburst, it was kind of like her turn.
I just want to ask a quick question. It was really small, and it was a quick scene. But did y'all notice Nicole's father's face when she was trying to explain the situation? And she was a little frantic about it, but she was saying, "Oh, he's breaking down. We don't know what to do with dolls. Can I let you have Charlie?" And for a split second, his face was like, "What?" Like he wanted to say more, but yeah. It's always the little things that I look for. Like I was like, yeah, she gonna tell her dad what really happened. He gonna have something to say about it. We probably won't hear about it, but he's gonna have something to say about it.
He did take a long pause, but then he said, of course, yes, of course, you know, because it seems like he lives in Florida. So that's a long stretch for him to be coming back and forth to Nashville to watch dogs and, you know, come back and forth. So he absolutely, I'm all for it. But he did take a long pause before he said yes. And I don't, you're right. He, what's his name? I want to call him Mac. Chris was, he said, well, I can't ask you to do that. She said, well, last case scenario, my dad can take both dogs. My dad can take my dogs. And he said, I can't ask you to do that. But my concern is, Coach, and that's what I was saying before, the fact that he couldn't plan